It's 6 p.m. now, Cairo local time. It's a very good evening to our viewers and welcome to Channel 2's English News Bulletin. I'm Angie Meher joining you for the evening. We begin straight away with a look at the headlines. Voting for the runoff Senate elections abroad continues on Tuesday. Cabinet's Information and Decision Support Center issues special press release over developments related to Palestine as Israeli aggression continues. And Trump says he wants to meet North Korea's Kim again. Welcome back. Now the details in full. The Prime Minister, Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, held a meeting on Tuesday to review the implementation of the electricity projects held in the cities under the mandate of the new Urban Communities Authority in participation with the private sector. During the meeting, they discussed mechanisms of implementing a number of financing projects, design, construction, exploration and maintenance of transformer plants and electricity networks in cities under the mandate of the new Urban Communities Authority, with the support of the Technical Central Unit and participation of the private sector in the Ministry of Finance. The meeting also focused on the importance of the participation of the private sector in the implementation of the facilities projects and ways to enter these projects into service as soon as possible. The runoff for Egyptians abroad is being held in 136 embassies and consulates in over 117 countries around the world under the supervision of Egyptian ambassadors and diplomats. The runoff of the Senate elections inside Egypt will be held on Wednesday and Thursday. 10 candidates are contesting for 5 individual seats in the governorates of Gharbiya, Ismailia, Beni Suef, Al-Qusr and the New Valley. The Cabinet's Information and Decision Support Center, the IDSC, issued a special press release over international and regional developments in relation to the Palestinian question. The press release showed a shift in world opinion polls towards a rejection of the Israeli military's aggression and genocidal acts in Gaza and increasing support for the Palestinian state. Opinion polls also showed that 70% of the Israelis consider lack of confidence as the largest obstacle towards peace, whilst 80% of Palestinians in the occupied territories are of the opinion that there's no end of the war without a complete Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. 44% of Israelis asserted that Egypt is the second to the U.S. in ability to play a pivotal role in pushing forward the peace process. Meanwhile, more Palestinian families left Gaza City on Tuesday after a night of Israeli occupation shelling on its outskirts. Residents said Israeli aerial and tank shelling continued throughout the night and early on Tuesday in the eastern Gaza City suburbs, as well as in Jabalia town to the north. This destroyed roads and homes. Local health authorities said that at least 34 people were killed in Israeli strikes in the enclave overnight, and on Tuesday, including 18 people around Gaza City. This comes a day after Israeli occupation struck the main Nasser hospital in the southern Gaza Strip city of Khan Yunis, killing at least 20 people, including journalists and rescue workers who rushed to the scene. Israel's aggression in Gaza has now killed over 62,000 Palestinians, mostly civilians, according to the Gaza Health Ministry, as well as plunged the enclave into humanitarian crisis and internally displaced nearly its entire population. A 23rd aid convoy is bound for Gaza through the Rafah border crossing to the Karam Abu Salam crossing before it enters the Gaza Strip. The convoy is part of the Zed al-Azza initiative. Early on Monday, 143 aid trucks entered Gaza through the south gate of the Rafah border crossing into the Karam Abu Salam crossing to be inspected by the Israeli occupation authorities. Truckloads of food aid included water and baby formula. China said on Tuesday it was shocked by an Israeli strike on a Gaza hospital in which 5 journalists were amongst at least 20 people killed. The Foreign Ministry spokesperson expressed condolences to the victims and sympathy to their families. Spokesperson added that Israel should immediately stop its military operations in Gaza, as well as achieve a comprehensive and lasting ceasefire as soon as possible and fully restore the entry of humanitarian supplies, preventing a large-scale humanitarian crisis, and work to ease tensions as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, protesters calling for an end to the war in Gaza and the return of hostages being held there took to the streets in Israel on Tuesday morning ahead of a security cabinet meeting scheduled for late in the day. Demonstrators blocked roads in Tel Aviv where they waved Israeli flags and held up pictures of the hostages. Israeli occupation media reported others rallying near a U.S. embassy branch in the city, as well as outside the homes of various ministers across the country. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu last week ordered immediate talks aimed at securing the release of all remaining captives in Gaza. U.S. President Donald Trump said he thinks there will be a good, conclusive ending to the Israeli war in Gaza within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Asked about famine in Gaza, Trump said the U.S. is spending a lot of money to help feed hungry people. Meanwhile, mediator Qatar said Tuesday that it was still waiting for Israel's response to a proposal for a truce and hostage release deal in the Palestinian territory after Hamas agreed to the framework more than a week ago. Qatar and Egypt, along with the United States, have been mediating indirect ceasefire negotiations in the Israeli war in Gaza, despite Israeli violations of the last truce. Qatari Foreign Ministry spokesperson told a regular news conference that the responsibility now lies on the Israeli side to respond to the offer that is on the table. Amnesty International said on Tuesday that the Israeli army's extensive destruction of civilian property in South Lebanon, including after a ceasefire with Hezbollah was struck, should be investigated as a war crime. The November 27th truce largely ended more than a year of hostilities between Israel and Hezbollah that culminated in 2 months of open war, during which Israel sent in ground troops and conducted a major bombing campaign. The rights group's Erica Juvara Rosas said in a statement that the destruction had rendered entire areas uninhabitable and ruined countless lives. Under the truce, Hezbollah was to pull its fighters back from near the border, with the Lebanese army deploying to the south and dismantling the militant group's infrastructure there. U.S. envoy Tom Barrack, meanwhile, said Tuesday that his country would approve the extension of the United Nations peacekeepers' mandate in Lebanon for 1 more year. Barrack said that with the UN Security Council discussing the future of the peacekeeping force in southern Lebanon, whose mandate ends on Sunday, the U.S.'s position is that they would extend for a year. He noted disapprovingly that the force cost $1 billion a year. Security Council is debating a French-drafted compromise that would keep UNIFIL in place for another year whilst it prepares to withdraw. The vote, which was supposed to take place overnight, has faced U.S. and Israeli opposition and was postponed as negotiations continued. An Israeli occupation strike killed a man in southern Syria, with Damascus condemning the attack as a flagrant violation of international law. Syria condemned the recent Israeli attacks on its territory, which resulted in the martyrdom of a young man. Syrian Foreign Ministry said in a statement, and also condemning the Israeli forces' incursion into a town in the countryside and arresting campaigns against civilians, as well as their announcement of the continuation of their illegal presence on the summit of Mount Hermon and the buffer zone. Meanwhile, the Israeli military said it had carried out several activities last week in southern Syria to locate weapons and apprehend suspects. Senior officials from Iran and Europe's top 3 powers met in Geneva today to discuss the Westerners' demand that Iran revive nuclear inspections and diplomacy or face their imposition of sanctions that were lifted under a 2015 deal. France, Britain and Germany, known as the E3, have long threatened to trigger the snapback of sanctions at the United Nations Security Council by October 18th, when a now largely defunct nuclear deal struck 10 years ago between Tehran and major powers expires. They more recently said they plan to decide by the end of August unless Iran offers concessions that could convince them to hold off for a short time often referred to as an extension. The Russian Defense Ministry said that systems intercepted and destroyed 43 Ukrainian drones overnight, according to their news agency. Earlier, the United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke with his European counterparts and discussed diplomatic efforts to bring an end to the war in Ukraine. He spoke to the UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy, Ukrainian Foreign Minister, and the Finnish Foreign Minister, as well as the EU Foreign Policy Chief, amongst others. Ukrainian Foreign Minister said that Ukraine was grateful to Rubio for his efforts and to the US President Donald Trump for his peacemaking leadership. He added that security guarantees for Ukraine were key. France's Prime Minister has announced a confidence vote next month that likely will lead to the collapse of his centrist government and prompt another period of political instability in the European Union's second biggest economy. François Bayrou said he would seek approval for his unpopular budget plans on September 8th at the National Assembly, France's lower house of parliament. Opposition parties quickly said they would vote against it. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron, who has vowed to stay in office till the end of his term in 2027, may soon face the complex task of appointing a new prime minister for the third time in a year. Prime Minister focuses mostly on domestic policies, whilst the president retains substantial powers over foreign policy, European affairs, as well as defense. The American President Donald Trump said he wanted to meet North Korean leader Kim Jong-un this year and was open to further trade talks with South Korea, even as he lobbed new strict criticisms at the visiting Asian ally. We have the details.
U.S. President Donald Trump said he wanted to meet with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un this year and that he was open to further trade talks with South Korea, even as he lobbed new criticisms at the visiting Asian ally. Trump lodged vague complaints about a purge or revolution in South Korea on social media, before later walking those back as a likely misunderstanding between the allies. Despite clinching a trade deal in July that spared South Korean exports harsher U.S. tariffs, the two sides continued to wrangle over nuclear energy, military spending, and details of a deal that included $350 billion in promised South Korean investments in the U.S. North Korea did not immediately respond to a request for comment on Trump's remarks. Its state media said later that U.S.-South Korea joint military drills proved Washington's intention to occupy the Korean peninsula and target countries in the region. Since Trump's January inauguration, Kim has ignored Trump's repeated calls to revive the direct diplomacy he pursued during his 2017 to 2021 term in office, which produced no deal to halt North Korea's nuclear program.
Welcome back. Now taking a look at some business news. Egypt's Zohr gas field has increased output by 65 million cubic feet per day with the start of production from the Zohr 6 well as part of ongoing efforts to boost field performance under the Petroleum Ministry strategy. The announcement was made on Tuesday during the General Assemblies of the Petrobel and Petroshuru to approve results for the first fiscal year 2024-25. Meeting also reviewed plans to expand oil and gas exploration in deeper layers, supported by seismic studies, with the Ministry of Petroleum and Mineral Resources and the Minister Karim Badawi directing detailed long-term studies to unlock full production potentials. And the Egyptian stock market indices edged lower at the close on Tuesday, affected by selling operations by Arab and foreign corporations, as well as Arab and local investors, whilst the Egyptian funds and foreign investors went into purchasing operations. Capital market for companies listed in the bourse lost about £21 billion, reaching £2.253 billion. The benchmark EGX30 index declined by 1.26% to end the dealings at 3,535.34 points. Equal-weighted index EGX70 was also down 0.11%, reaching 10,733.7 points, whilst the more expanded EGX100 was down by about 0.37% to close at 14,322.88 points. Now moving to the exciting world of sports, kicking off with the Egyptian Premier League fourth round matches that resume Tuesday with 3 matches. Zamalek meet Farco at 9 p.m. Cairo local time at Salam Stadium. The Whites occupy second place with 7 points. Meanwhile, المصرية Port Saidi will play with حرس الحدود at the same time at Suez Stadium, and Samuha is playing as we speak now with the Kahraba Ismailia. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we wrap up this evening's English News Bulletin here on Channel 2. My name is Angie Meher. Thank you for watching.